Hi guys, welcome back to another video in this channel. Today we're actually going to be taking or walking through a very interesting topic. Someone suggested this one yesterday, and I don't think I've ever done like a specific video about color theory. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying that I'm not a concept artist, but there are certain things, certain concepts about color theory that even a 3D artist, or even if you're not an illustrator, you should know about. So this might be a little bit basic for a lot of people that have been in the industry or have been working for a long time. Hopefully it's also useful for those of you that are new to the 3D world. But before we go there, let me tell you that today's the last day to apply and utilize this promotion. Hey guys, Abraham here. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for your continued support towards the channel. And thanks to that, today we're giving away to 1,000 lucky winners the full ZBrush character likeness course by Victor Yamakato. In this course, Victor will share with you all of the tips, tricks, and techniques that he uses to create amazing looking characters. If that's something you're interested in, if you want to bring your ZBrush level to the next step, then make sure to check down here in the description of this video and input your email address and a name that we can use to get the course to you. We promise not to spam your inbox. We're only going to be sharing important information about our courses, our classes, and all of the cool information that you need for your 3D journey. And again, thank you very much, guys. Make sure to click on the link. Only the first 1,000 subscribers will get this course, so quickly go there and check that one out. Also, remember that every single like, share, and comment helps us, so thank you again for your continued support, and let's go back to the video. There we go. So yeah, welcome to this very fast and I would say hopefully what's the word, useful color theory class. So we need to cover a couple of basics before we can go into some examples on how we can apply this color theory into our 3D work. Sorry about the autofocus. I haven't been able to figure out what it is. It kind of loses track of my eyes. And I think it's kind of focusing on the Pokeball back here, right there. So anyway, first of all, we need to understand that there are three things, let's say three properties that color has. Let me bring this. So the first thing, the first property, it's hue. Hue is the color by itself. So we have generally classified colors into this color wheel. These are the main colors that we're going to be studying today. And depending on which color we're talking about, we're going to be able to define where we start on the color wheel. So if you ever taken any sort of art class, even when we were kids, we know that there's three primary colors, which is yellow, red. I'm going to place a P there to mark that they're primary colors. Yellow, red, and blue. Now, this only works on something called the, I think it's called the, I don't remember if it is subtractive or the additive method. I think it's the additive method, additive method. There's two types of light. Let me check that real quick because that's important, or it's going to be important in a second. Give me just 1 second. Okay, yeah, so the method that we normally know is the subtractive method, and the additive method works with R, G, and B. Now, this really doesn't affect us as much, I would say, unless you're working with print. If you're going to be printing stuff, then you really need to know this thing, because what happens is the colors that we see here on the screen and when we're designing don't match up with the colors that we're going to be using with ink, because in ink, it's a mixture of inks, and here it's a mixture of light. So things vary there, but for our general purposes, we're going to be using this subtractive wheel, which is the traditional one. So if you have blue and yellow, you're going to create the secondary colors, which are this ones, which is of course green, this is orange, and this is a violet or purple. And then if you combine those ones, a secondary color and a primary color, you're going to get a tertiary color. This is very, very important. After that, we can of course get all of the wide range of varieties in color, but you can see our color wheel over here and how we have the red. In this case, it's the greens and the blue. See how this one is using the additive method? So it's going to be a little bit different, but in principle, it's very similar. Now, why is this important? Well, it's very important that we correctly communicate whenever we're talking about colors, because what you might think as a flamingo pink might not be the exact same hue that I'm thinking about when I think about flamingo pink. Here in Mexico, we have a really complicated situation. Maybe it's elsewhere, but it's very funny here, which is verde limon. It's a lemon green, right? In the United States, a lime, it's actually, or lemon, they're switched for some reason. But if you think about the green, citrus, we call it lemon. But sometimes it can be really, really dark. So it can be really, really green, like this one right here. So whenever you ask hey, I want this lemon green, it's yeah, what kind of lemon green, right? It's a little bit difficult to understand. So that's where the other components come into play. As I mentioned, the color has always three properties. Hue, saturation is the next one, and value is the final one. Sometimes they also call this a brightness or a lightness. Those tend to be the elements that they call or that you use when talking about a color. Now, saturation is how much pigment you're going to have. So if I go to this red right here and I go all the way to red and I paint, this is a pure red, right? Like 100% saturation. But if I just lower the saturation right here, actually, let me see if I can have this set to, it will be like, if we start lowering the saturation over here while keeping the same lightness, we'll get something like this. So even though it seems like a darker red, like a, I don't know, like a rose or salmon or something like that, it's just that we're changing the saturation of the color. So all of this, guys, they're all red. They're all red of value because we haven't changed the hue on this outer wheel right here. It's still in the same place. We're only changing the saturation and the value. If we go over here, we're gonna get a darker, let's go like a darker saturated red right there. And then if we go here, we're gonna get a lighter desaturated red. Okay, so usually one good rule of thumb is whenever you're talking to someone about colors and you want to make changes, especially when you're working with like a client, always try to refer to these three things. It's going to be a lot easier to communicate. So if your client says, I don't like the red, you're going to ask, what is it you don't like about red? Is it too saturated? Is it too light? Is it too dark? And that's the kind of things that you're going to modify, because if they're saying, no, I want more like a cherry red. Well, what do you mean by cherry red? Is it darker? Is it lighter? Is it like, again, more saturated, less saturated? Is it more towards the purples? Is it more towards the yellows? That's the kind of questions that you want to ask, because it's very frustrating when you're trying to communicate about color and people don't understand it. But just ask those questions: darker, lighter, more saturated, less saturated, more towards the pinks, more towards the yellows, and that will help your client and yourself get to the proper position. Now, why is this important? Well, because colors actually, like, they have some sort of, well, not some sort, they have a very interesting play between each other, and we can create some very, very interesting compositions when we start thinking about how the colors interact with each other. And the easiest ones that I can tell you about is the complementary colors. So the colors that are opposed to themselves in the wheel, they're called complementary colors. So for instance, if I am working with purple and I want to make this purple look even more purple, I'm gonna add some yellow to it, okay? So if I were to add some yellow close to this purple, the yellow and the purple are gonna look more intense. Easiest example I can show you is like a little flower. So if I do a little flower right here, right? And let's do another one right over here. And then I paint the inside of the flower. I'm gonna paint the inside of one flower yellow, and I'm gonna paint the other one like orange. Now, which of these two flowers look the most intense? Of course, it's this one. Why? Because since the colors, in this case yellow and purple, are in the opposite ways of the color wheel, they're gonna boost each other out. They're gonna create a lot of contrast. In traditional paint, they will also dull colors out. So if you were to mix yellow and purple, you're gonna start going towards the gray, because they kind of cancel each other out. But in this sort of things, when thinking about color composition, you want to think about how you can emphasize something a little bit more, right? And again, if you use the opposite color on the color wheel, you're gonna get more contrast. Here's another example. Let's say we're doing like a gift, like a Christmas gift, right? And you are creating the little box right here. And let's add, this is a horrible box, by the way, but so like a darker shadow here on the red, and then like a cleaner, like this, right? Like we're shading these things a little bit. Again, the perspective is completely off, but hopefully the example is going across. So there we go. That's a little bit better. Now, if I want to add a ribbon to this thing, I would choose a green ribbon. Why? Because the green ribbon is gonna really push my colors to the next level. So something like this, and then we go for like a darker green over here, right? Because there's shadows and lights, right? So there we go. So a green ribbon on top of a red gift, it's gonna make the gift look even more like intense, because the colors again are on the opposite sides of the color wheel, and that's one thing that you need to keep in mind. And finally, the blue and the orange are one of the most common ways. I use this one a lot. If you've seen some of the rendering videos, if you wanna go for the super easy trick, just have a warm light hitting your object, and then a rim will like cool light hitting the back of the object, and you're gonna have a really nice contrast. It's one of the easiest ways to create this sort of like cinematic, a little bit more interesting look on the compositions by using colors. Now, that's not the only thing that you can use colors for. There's also something that I really like to use, which are called the I always forget about these things. That's why I don't like specifically teach this class. But again, hopefully you guys are getting this. So again, if you just look for color theory online, you're gonna find so much information. Painters use this a little bit. There we go. These things. These are the color schemes. Oh. And this is the way they categorize things, right? So there we go. Let me just. Perfect. So these are like the ways you can like combine objects. Again, as I mentioned, one of the most famous ones is the complementary colors, which is the ones that are like inverse to the other ones. And then this is the one that I really like, the analogous colors. So if you grab your color wheel and you grab like a section, like a slice of your color wheel like this, and you create a composition or a character, for instance, using only those colors, it's very pleasing to the eye to see something. So imagine we're creating, I don't know, like a frog, right? And this is going to be the color of the frog, the main color. Maybe we have like black eyes, right? But then we say, hey, you know what? He's going to have like dark spots on the top. And then the fingertips are going to be like yellow. Right? So by using these three colors, we create a very nice composition, and it's very pleasing to the eye because we're only grabbing a section of the color wheel. And you can rotate this thing around as much as you want. You're gonna be able to create that stuff. Now, if you combine that, if you start combining and mixing and matching these color schemes, for instance, let's say, hey, yes, we like this one, but we're gonna go to the opposite side of this complement or this analogous color, and we're gonna add some like dark spots. That's going to give it a lot of contrast, right? Because we're going to have this super dark shadows or super dark spots on the character that are being complemented by this analogous highlights that we got over here. Again, I'm not a graphic designer, so just take this with a little bit of a grain of salt and use them and try around with your compositions and with your characters, depending on how you want to do it. But that's a very simple way to do it. Like if you only want to create like an interesting setup, an interesting skin tone for your character, but you don't want to bury it that much, keep it on an analogous palette. Like grab one section of the color wheel and keep your tones on that specific section. This one's a little bit more complicated, the Triad. That's when you grab, as the name implies, like three things, creating this sort of like triangle. So for instance, this one right here, like yellow, red, and blue. It also plays very nicely. It's a very, very nice way to create something, but it's a little bit trickier, right? Because these colors are so far apart from the color wheel that it becomes a little bit more complicated. The way I suggest thinking about these elements is, again, in terms of a character. Like imagine we're creating like this kind of resembles like an alien. So let's say we're doing like a blue alien, right? And the whole skin is going to be blue, kind of like the Avatar guys. Fine. That's fine. And then we can add red, but maybe not that specific red. We can bring like a darker, like a less saturated red, and add some things, some stripes and things to the character. That's going to create an interesting composition, because even though it's not the exact red that we have here on the color wheel, it will still create that sort of triad effect. And then we can add a final detail, maybe the eyes on yellow, yeah. So again, by combining this on different proportions, we can also play around with how the colors complement each other. Can you have an object or an element with all of the colors at the same proportion? Yes. For instance, there's a lot of this thing going on logos. So if you look at the Burger King logo, they match it. That's what they did. Well, they rebranded to this new one, right? But in the one that they had before, it's the three colors. It's red, yellow, and blue, like working perfectly in syntony or in harmony to create this very interesting effect. Even this one, like this is some sort of like a super old logo, but even here they managed to like add blue, red, and yellow in a very nice balanced way that makes sense for the time that when this was created. So again, the best thing I can tell you guys, the best advice I can give you as a 3D artist when thinking about colors is you always want to have something that is a balance, right? And balance can come, again, from the hues that you choose, from the saturations that you use, or for the values. I'm going to bring up one of the renders that we did recently, and I'm going to explain why I took some decisions when doing this one. So let me go to, I'm going to use the Maya one. We released the Maya course a couple of there we go. So this image right here, even though it might not seem like it, I actually did think about color theory when building it up. So what are the things that I tried to capture here? Well, I knew we were going to go for a high contrast image. Okay, so a lot of really high or really intense lights and really intense shadows. That's why we pretty much lose the scene here and here. Like you can't really see what's happening, right? It's very dark. But I knew that we were gonna balance that out by having really intense highlights like the ones that we have here on this frame. There's a light hitting on the character. You don't see it, but there's like one on the top, kind of like a spotlight. And then there's these two lights at the center. I wanted to go for a very balanced composition, even though we're not talking about composition right now. That's kind of like the thing we were going for. So it's very balanced. You can see it's pretty much symmetrical. The only thing that changes this thing and kind of like pushes the balance to one side, in this case the left side, is the fact that we have another light source right here and the robot is here. But if you take those things away, the room is pretty much symmetrical. In regards to colors, if I were to ask you guys what kind of color we're going for, I would like to think that most of you would say it's a warm tone, right? Like we're going for a warm color. So we have this violet, we have this red color right here, we have its oranges here on the lights, and overall the scene is quite warm. That was the main focus. Why? Because I knew that the character was gonna be cold. He was gonna have cool lights, this blue lights, and he was gonna be white. So that would immediately create a really strong contrast. So if the whole room was cold or was using cold colors, and then we have a cold character, then everything would be very analogous, right? And even though that might be something that we might be going for, I actually wanted to create contrast. And again, contrast gives us that punch. It's kind of like turning the volume up and creates an interesting effect. So by having a warm environment and a cool character, we make the character pop out more, and we make the environment pop out more, because they kind of like compete against each other, drawing your attention and wanting to create this very interesting effect. So there you go, my friends. That's pretty much it. I know this was a brief class, but hopefully having or understanding a little bit of this concept helps you create interesting compositions. I also did the like this Jedi scene. Let me just pull that one up, because that one's another, I think it was a cool example. Actually, let me show you another example from the cinematics class that I think works as nice as well. This is another one that we did. This is a spooky scene, and it works very similar. I went for warm lights on the main light and then cool like shadows everywhere else, plus that nice little touch with the balloon, like a very saturated red balloon on the center to draw our attention. So these two examples, the little robot guy and this like scene, and a lot of more examples that we can bring, of course. Here's another one. Remember I talked orange and blue? That's what I meant. Like when you combine lights and play around with lights, you can create a very, very interesting compositions that are going to help your renders pop out more and convey a different kind of story. So hopefully you like this video, guys. I know this is a little bit different. Again, this is not my usual area of expertise. I'm not an expert at color, but hopefully these little tips and tricks have helped you or will help you on your journey as a 3D artist. The next couple of days, I might not be able to submit a video. I actually been very, very punctual, like submitting one video every day for the last couple of days. But yeah, this next 2 or 3 days might be a little bit difficult. I'll try to record something to let you guys some material, leave you guys some materials, but make sure to check the links. And if you wanna, or you have some free time you wanna check, we'll still have the Skillshare promo available, which is this one. Hey guys, Abraham here. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for your continued support towards the channel. And thanks to that, today we're giving away to 1,000 lucky winners the full ZBrush character likeness course by Victor Yamakado. That was not the commercial. I don't know what happened there. I think I went to the wrong commercial. Sorry about that. But yeah, the proper commercial should be down here in the link. There should be like a Skillshare link so that you can get, I believe it's like 7, 10, or like 15 days free where all of our courses are available. So make sure to check that one out. Thank you very much, guys. You know that your likes, shares, and subscriptions helps us quite a bit. So make sure to hit those buttons if you haven't. And that's it. Thank you very much, guys. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.